Good morning, everybody. My name is Jennifer Broomfield, and I am an attorney at Bay Area Legal Services, Major General A, and Marilyn Bedke Veterans Law Center. Bay Area Legal Services is a nonprofit law firm that offers legal services for civil issues for eligible residents in the Tampa Bay area. If you wish to apply for legal services, please call 1-800-625-2257 or apply online at bals.org. We also have two statewide hotlines which provide telephone advice to any qualifying Florida resident. The Florida Senior Helpline is available to eligible Florida residents age 60 and over, and their number is 888-895-7873. I work on the Veterans Legal Helpline, which provides free civil legal advice to any veteran and their immediate family member, and our number is 866-486-6161. The Veterans Law Center also conducts medical legal partnerships at the Bay Pines and Haley VA hospitals. Veterans who receive care at Bay Pines or Haley can ask their providers or social workers for a referral to our medical legal partnerships. Today, we're going to talk about discharge upgrades, specifically what they are, how to apply for them, and what other options are available for veterans seeking care or benefits at the VA. I'm going to offer some general information, but if any Florida veteran watching this would like advice regarding their discharge, please call our helpline to schedule an appointment to speak with an attorney. We're going to cover a lot today, but don't worry, you don't have to remember it all. You can rewatch this video once it's live on our Facebook page, or you can go to our website, bals.org, click on Veterans, and under Resources, you'll find our Discharge Upgrade Guide. So let's get started. I'm going to do this as sort of a question answer, frequently asked questions about discharge upgrades, and I'll look at any comments and questions at the end of my talk. So, a word about the impact of COVID-19 on discharge upgrades as it has impacted everything else. We're going to talk about how to get your records to submit for an upgrade and what the board process is like, but both the National Archives, where you will be submitting your request for records, and the discharge review boards and boards for correction and military records have been closed for routine actions. And so you can still submit the application, but it may be delayed during this process. So let's start with what is a discharge upgrade. A discharge upgrade changes the character of your discharge on your DD-214 from general under honorable conditions, or an other than honorable, or a dishonorable, or a bad conduct discharge, to a more favorable discharge, honorable, of course, being the best, or general other than honorable. Before we get started about the process, let's take a minute to talk about the types of discharges. Any discharge that occurs before the end of a term of service is classified as either an administrative discharge or a punitive discharge. Note that if you're medically discharged, it's not considered either. It's sort of a separate animal all on its own. So, in order of desirability of administrative discharge, there's honorable, general discharge under honorable conditions, and discharge under other than honorable conditions. Those are all administrative discharges. A punitive discharge is a bad conduct, dishonorable, or dismissal. Dismissal applies to officers only, and they're more serious charges, and they can only be given as part of a court-martial sentence. So what is a change in the reason for the discharge? So you have your discharge, but you also have a narrative reason for the discharge, and that will be listed on your DD-214 as well. And examples of narrative discharges that you might want to seek a change on is either personality disorder or homosexuality. Prior to post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, being a recognized mental health condition in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Psychiatric Disorders in the 1980s, many Vietnam-era veterans who suffered from PTSD were wrongly diagnosed and discharged with the personality disorder. So, what's your first step? You've decided you want to do discharge upgrade. What's your first step? Your first step is to make sure you have your complete military personnel and medical records, right? Your complete service record, your complete medical records from the military. And even if you think you have them all, it's not a bad idea to request them again just to make sure that everything is up to date. And you do that by going to the National Archives, which is archives.gov/veterans. But please note right now, like I said, because of COVID-19, they're only processing emergency requests, which it defines as requests from homeless veterans, medical concerns, or funerals. Doesn't mean you can't put in the request, but just know that it's going to be on pause for a little bit. So, what do you do after you have all your records? The next step is to determine where you're going to file your application, because there are two boards that look at discharge upgrade applications. One is a discharge review board, a DRB, and the other is the Board for Correction and Military Records, a BCMR, or in the case of Navy and Marines, BCNR, Board for Correction of Naval Records. Um, each service has their own DRB and BCMR. The Marines are incorporated into the Naval boards. Um, the deadline for applying for a discharge review board is 15 years from your separation of service, and that is a hard and fast deadline, no exceptions. So if you were discharged more than 15 years ago, your only option is to go directly to a board for correction and military records. And they also have deadlines, but it's a 3-year deadline from the date that you discovered the error or injustice. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means, error or injustice. But there are 3 exceptions to this deadline. One is if you applied to the discharge review boards first and were denied an upgrade, you have 3 years from the date of that denial as opposed to from the date you discovered the injustice. Um, the second is the boards have very, very broad discretion to waive the 3-year deadline in the interest of justice. And the third is they will waive the deadline if you're raising issues related to post traumatic stress disorder or traumatic brain injury. The other issue to consider when you're applying is what you want to achieve, because discharge review boards have limited power. They cannot upgrade a discharge that resulted from a general court martial. So if that was your situation, you're going to have to, again, go directly to the Board for Correction and Military Records. They also cannot change a reason for discharge to or from a disability disorder. So if you're seeking either of these or the deadline to the Discharge Review Board has passed, you have to apply to the BCMR. Note of caution, you can't go directly to the Board for Correction and Military Records if you could apply at a Discharge Review Board first. The BCMRs won't consider your application until you've exhausted all of the remedies available through a Discharge Review Board first. So what forms do you need to submit your application? That's going to depend upon where you're applying. If you're applying to the Discharge Review Board, it's the DD 293. If you're applying to BCMR, it's DD 149. Note that you're going to see a fairly small space to explain the reason for why you think you should be granted a discharge. And the form itself is like a one-page form. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. But you're going to want to go into some detail about why you believe you should be getting this discharge. So in that space, you're just going to say, please see attached, and you're going to type out a more expansive discussion about why you believe your discharge should be granted. And if you have an attorney helping you, they're going to file a brief as well on your behalf. So, how do the boards make these decisions? What are their standards of review? How do they decide if a service member should get an upgrade or not? Well, the DRB and the BCMRs have slightly different language, but they're both basically looking at fairness or legal error. So, for the Discharge Review Board, it's equity. They're looking at, was this an equitable decision? And for a BCMR, they're looking at injustice. Was this an unjust decision? And then in terms of propriety or error, that's really talking about legal error. Was there a procedural error made? And for the DRBs, it's looking at propriety, and for the BCMRs, it's looking at error. And I just see that a question came in. I'm going to ask everybody, feel free to type your questions. I'm going to respond to them when I'm done with the presentation. So an example of an equity issue related to fairness is, let's say you were a service member who had years and years of great, honorable, just service, and you slipped up and you made one mistake and you got discharged for that. Um, the board will look at the totality of circumstances and how were you doing overall, and may say, well, in the interest of fairness, in the interest of equity, we believe this candidate should get an upgrade. Propriety issues are more, did the service not follow their own rules and procedures in making the decision to discharge you in the way that they did? Note that all the boards are going to start with the assumption that the service got it right. And so it's up to you to really provide them a reason to find otherwise. Um, Now, what if you experienced military sexual trauma, MST, or post traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, or TBI, traumatic brain injury? What proof should you submit about these experiences or health conditions? You're going to want to submit any medical or mental health treatment documentation that you received both in the military and post discharge for any of those conditions. You're going to want to have those records available so that they can see that this occurred while you were in service or was exacerbated by your service if it was sort of an underlying condition. But you should also submit letters from battle buddies, commanding officers, friends, or family members who can attest to the impact that MST or PTSD or TBI were having on you while you were serving, and and the impact it had on your ability to perform your duties while enlisted. And while this next thing I'm asking you to do may be very difficult to do, it's important that you include a stress statement that tells the board what happened to you in your own words and how it impacted you and how it impacted your ability to serve to the level you had been serving before the stressor or the injury occurred. It's very important. You're going to want to make the direct connection for the board of how PTSD impacted the behavior or the misconduct that was at issue in your discharge. So, sort of piggybacking on that, do the boards have special rules related to PTSD, TBI, and MST? Yes, they do. In 2014, the Hagel memo informed the boards that they must expedite any discharge upgrade applications related to PTSD or TBI and must give these applications liberal considerations. And that has really, really made a difference in the rate of discharge upgrade applications that are approved. It's still not a tremendously high rate, but the services were hovering around 8% before the 2014 and the subsequent memos, and are now, depending upon the service, anywhere between like 13 and 20%. So that's a significant increase. In 2017, the Curtin memo expanded on the Hagel memo, and it clarifies that boards must sympathetically view all applications based on any mental health condition, including but not limited to PTSD, TBI, and also sexual harassment or assault, MST issues. And importantly, the Curtin memo discusses substance abuse and the role that it sometimes plays when service members struggling with PTSD or TBI or MST, in that if you were discharged for substance abuse and the substance use came about as a result of the mental health condition, in other words, you were self medicating to deal with that issue, then that can, the board should consider that in deciding whether to grant you a discharge upgrade or not. The credit member also lays out 4 questions that they want boards to consider anytime there's PTSD, MST, or TBIs at issue. And these are the 4 questions. Did the veteran have a condition or experience that may excuse or mitigate the discharge? Did that condition exist or did the experience occur during military service? Does that condition or experience actually excuse or mitigate the discharge? And does that condition or experience outweigh the discharge? If you are making an application based on any of those factors, PTSD, TBI, MST, it's really important, or any type of sexual harassment, it's really important that you address all four of those questions in your statement, that you lay it out really clearly for the boards. Yes, this did have an impact, and this is how. Aside from your service record, your awards, your medals, your letters from colleagues, family, and friends to indicate how the situation has impacted you, what other evidence should you submit? Well, the good news is that all boards are going to consider post-service conduct as well as what occurred while you were in service. So it's important to let the boards know about your successes. If you enter treatment and/or AA and are now sober, let them know. If you're gainfully employed, let them know. If you are in or completed a course of higher education or vocational training, let them know. If you're married or in a committed relationship and/or raising children, let them know. If you're involved in a place of worship or do charity or volunteer work, let them know. If you have evidence of financial stability, so gathering letters of good standing from banks and credit card companies, let them know. And it's also helpful to submit character witness statements. So this is an addition and slightly different than asking a battle buddy to talk about the impact of PTSD had on you during your service. This is more about what kind of person are you, and what kind of character do you have now in the present day. So what if you were dishonorably discharged under Don't Ask, Don't Tell? Can you request a discharge upgrade now? Absolutely, and you should. However, note of caution, if you were discharged both under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but other patterns of misconduct, you're going to have to address those other issues as well. So, say, for example, you were discharged for homosexuality under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but also for substance use or um, getting into a fight with somebody. You're going to have to address those issues in your application as well. You can't just say, I need a discharge upgrade because I was discharged under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So, how long does the process take? That's a great question, and I'm going to give the law school answer of it depends. It can typically take anywhere from 1 to 3 years on average. Still unclear about what the impact of COVID-19 is going to have on that time frame, if it's going to delay it even further. Can you have a hearing on the discharge upgrade? Yes, you can if you are applying to the Discharge Review Board. When you apply to a Discharge Review Board, you have two options. You can apply for a documentary review, meaning they're just going to look at all the evidence you submitted, no hearing, or you can request a personal appearance hearing. My advice is do the documentary review first, even though that may slow things down a bit, because if you get denied at the documentary review level, you can then request a personal appearance hearing and have a second bite at the apple at the Discharge Review Board level. Whereas if you go straight for a personal appearance hearing with the Discharge Review Board, you can't then go back and say, okay, never mind, I want a documentary review. Most of the hearings are going to be in Washington, D.C. However, the Air Force does hold regional board hearings 3 times a year, and the Navy does allow for telephonic hearings upon request. So you have those options if your service is either Air Force or Navy. The Board for Correction and Military Records do not do personal hearings. They just do a documentary review. So what if your whole reason for going after a discharge upgrade is really you just want access to VA healthcare and benefits? Do you need to apply for a discharge upgrade? No, you don't. There's another option. You can become eligible for most VA benefits, with the exception of the GI Bill, by having the VA do what's called a character of discharge determination. Additionally, if you have multiple enlistment periods and during at least one of the enlistments there were no discipline problems, you will be eligible for VA benefits for that good enlistment period. It can get tricky if you had multiple back to back, if your enlistments were back to back, because you may have only one DD 214, and that may make it more difficult to show you had an honorable discharge for a prior enlistment. So, what do you have to do to request a VA character of discharge determination process? The easiest way to do this is just to apply for whatever VA benefit you're interested in using the appropriate form. So, that could be healthcare, that could be service connected disability compensation, it could be a VA home loan. So, the form that you're going to use to request the service is going to depend upon what service you're applying for. When you file the benefits claim, you're going to also include a letter explaining why you should be eligible for the VA benefits. And this can be very similar if you're also doing a discharge upgrade application to the statement that you're going to submit with your discharge upgrade. But when you do all of that, you have the letter, you have the whatever form is required for the benefit you're requesting. You're also going to want to submit VA Form 214138. I'll say that again, VA Form 214138, and that's statement in support of claim. And all you have to include on that one, aside from your demographic information, is I request a hearing on the issue of my character of discharge. So that's going to be your statement, right? And you can then also say, see attached letter or supporting statement. How long does it take for the VA to make a determination? The VA process is often faster than the boards, but it's still a long process and it's likely to take about a year or so. Can you apply for a discharge upgrade and a character of discharge determination at the same time? Yes, you can, and you absolutely should, because while the character of discharge determination is still long, it's likely to be quicker than the discharge upgrade application. And if you're successful at that level, you can start receiving the VA benefits once that determination has been made. Whereas if you don't, you're going to have to wait until you have a successful discharge upgrade application decision and then apply to the VA for benefits. Are there guides for completing your discharge upgrade application? Yes, there's lots of resources that are free and available on the web, and I'm going to talk about some of them. Some of them are manuals, some of them are videos. So, Swords to Plowshare, the Connecticut Veterans Legal Center, and Yale Law School Veterans Legal Services Clinic all have free guides or manuals available on their website, going into varying levels of detail about how to apply and what the process is like. The VA also has a discharge upgrade guide that you can access at va.gov/discharge upgrade instructions. So again, that's va.gov/discharge upgrade instructions. And the University of Montana in March of 2019 held a one-day training for attorneys on discharge upgrades. And all of those videos are up on YouTube. You just can Google Veterans Law Training, University of Montana, and you'll see a bunch of them. But the one that I think is most useful for veterans who are thinking about applying is one called Inside Discharge Review Boards. And if you go to YouTube and just put in that, that'll be the first one that comes up. And the reason I think that one is so helpful is it's two actual discharge review board members talking about what the boards look for and how they make their decisions and common errors that they see in applications. Number one error probably be applying to a discharge review board when it's been more than 15 years, and so you're not eligible to have a discharge review board review your application. So you want to make sure, you watch that video and listen to what they say. They have a lot of good information, and you want to make sure that you're not making a mistake that's just going to wind up getting it kicked back to you, and now you have to start the process all over again. Each branch of the service also has reading rooms online where you can review prior decisions. This can be helpful to understand what the boards find to be compelling arguments and what they find to be not so compelling arguments. There's also a searchable database of decisions up to 2015. There's no post-2015 decisions at www.upgrade.vet. That's upgrade.vet. And I find that to be a particularly helpful website because you can, it's a searchable database. So if your issue is PTSD, you can type in PTSD and search for decisions that were made by concerning applications that have PTSD as an issue. If you were dismissed under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, you can put DADT in or homosexuality, and you can see cases related to that issue. The Naval Discharge Review Board also has an app that's available for Apple and Android devices, and I encourage any service member, regardless of the service, to download the app because even though some of it obviously is specific to Navy and Marines, there's a lot of good information all in one place that will apply regardless of what service you're applying to. So the Hagel memo is there, the Curta memo is there. There have been some other memos that are also relevant, like the Carson and the Wilkie memos. All of them are there. They have guides to doing the discharge upgrade application as well. So it's a great app to have on your phone or your tablet to just see a lot of research all in one place. So where can you get help or advice about discharge upgrades and character of discharge determinations? Well, Florida residents can call the Veterans Legal Helpline again at 1-866-486-6161 to schedule a phone appointment to speak with an attorney. Your local county VSO can also assist you. And if you are in another state, again, your local VSO can assist you. But you can also Google legal services for veterans in your state or city, and resources will come up around that. So, are there national programs that provide assistance with discharge upgrades? Yes. There are two in particular that are focused on veterans with particular issues in their discharge upgrade application. One is the Veterans Consortium Pro Bono program, and that will assist veterans who meet 3 criteria. You have to be discharged under conditions other than honorable or undesirable, so a general won't cut it. You have a diagnosis of or exhibit symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, or another mental health condition. And the Veterans Consortium finds at least one meritorious argument to present to the Discharge Review Board. You can apply online for their services at www.vetsprobono, all one word, vetsprobono.org/discharge upgrade, and again, discharge upgrade, all one word. And secondly, the Modern Military Association of America will assist LGBT veterans seeking a discharge upgrade. Please visit their website at www.modernmilitary.org, modern military, all one word. And they have more information there about who to call and how to apply for that. Finally, if you're a combat veteran or you experienced MST and you want counseling help while your discharge upgrade application is pending, or your VA character of discharge determination are pending, or if it's post that and you've been denied an upgrade, can you get help that really understands the experiences of combat veterans or people who have experienced MST? Absolutely. You can get help at vet centers, which are part of the VA, but they're not located at VA campuses. They're a very sort of separate entity. They offer free counseling and services to combat veterans, survivors of MST, and their families. They are some of the most amazing facilities I've ever seen. If you visit vetcenter.va.gov, you can learn more about the services and find a vet center near you. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm going to check and see if I have any questions again. Can you repeat that YouTube again? Yes, so the YouTube is Inside Discharge Review Boards is a specific one that I think is really, really helpful. You just go to YouTube and put in Inside Discharge Review Boards, And the University of Montana's Veterans Law Training is the first one that will come up. And like I said, they have a whole probably 8 or 10 hours of videos around different veterans issues, a lot around discharge upgrades, one on character of discharge determination. Um, they're all great, but I found the Inside Discharge Review Board particularly illuminating because it was two members of Discharge Review Board speaking. And then I just came in, but I have a question. What can I do if I still have not logged into unemployment? So that sounds like a question, if I'm understanding it correctly, around unemployment compensation. And because that's a little bit off topic today, what I would suggest is if you can call our number 1-800-625-2257, and you can apply for services and see if you can get some help through either one of our helplines or one of our other programs. And I'm just checking to see if there are any other questions. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. So I will say again, if you have any questions about veterans legal services like veterans benefits or discharge upgrade or any civil legal issue, our number, the veteran specific number is 866-486-6161. But you don't have to remember a bunch of different numbers. If you call 800-625-2257, that number is going to get you to the right program. If in fact you should be going to maybe our senior legal helpline or to the Veterans Legal Helpline, either one will get you where you need to go. And you can also apply online at bals.org. I thank you all for your time. It was a pleasure and a privilege to do this. I thank all the veterans out there for their service and their family members for their service. And have a great week. Oh, we have one question, so I'm going to hold off to see what that question is. And I also encourage you to go to our website, to the veterans page, because you'll be able to see the discharge upgrade guide there. And I believe it's going to be posted on our Facebook page later today as well. So that'll be an additional resource. Um, and I see somebody has said we have one question, but I don't see the question yet. Oh, never mind. It was answered. Okay. So with that being said, please everybody stay safe. Have a good weekend. Thank you for your time and contact us if you need any help. Thank you.